I'm gonna draw your mom.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this, an update on controversial Olympian Imane Khelif, who had an interview with the French outlet L'Equipe, stating that the medical testing identified the presence of the SRY gene, typically carried on a Y chromosome. The comments have reignited the debate around eligibility and fairness in women's sport. Khelif has competed under international and Olympic rules, and the results and medal remain officially recognized. This is a very unique situation where Khelif is not at fault. I beg to differ. The entire time that the IBA as an organization was vilified, Khelif knew, for saying that they tested Imane Khelif and one other athlete, and these athletes have XY chromosomes, whereas the women's category is typically defined by those who have XX chromosomes. Imane Khelif knew. They were telling the truth. They weren't lying, but Imane Khelif and the IOC allowed people to believe that the IBA was targeting Khelif unjustly, that it wasn't fair and we shouldn't take them at their word. The whole time Imane Khelif knew they were telling the truth, and so Imane Khelif has his responsibility in all of this. Because Imane Khelif knew. Also a gross bit of negligence from the IOC, who may have stripped the IBA of recognition due to a separate matter, not this. That wasn't the green light to throw caution to the wind and remove what provisions define a category in the first place. Those entire Olympic Games were marred with controversy and leftist propaganda. Those who believe that being a woman is some sort of a costume that you can just put on, that it's more of a feeling than a state of being. Dangerous and morbid ideology that seems to suggest that being a man or being a woman really has no definable qualities, and thus it cannot be defined by the same people who would mutilate their genitals to present as more one sex than the other. If the genitals that you were born with don't define your gender, then how does mutilating them define it? That doesn't make any fucking sense. You know what else doesn't make any fucking sense? It was mostly members of the LGBTQ community that went up to bat for Imane Khelif and his eligibility to compete in the women's category when Imane Khelif himself doesn't identify as a member of that community. Imane Khelif doesn't claim to be a trans person, transitioning. At the heart of the matter is a feeling that at birth, Imane Khelif may have been misgendered due to a developmental sexual disorder, though over time, as the athlete matured and their inverted testicles started secreting male hormones, it became more obvious that they were misgendered at birth. At its heart, that's not necessarily an LGBTQ issue, though. It's not. It literally isn't. If you've got testicles anywhere in there, irrespective of how they formed, that would bar you from competing against XX athletes because you have XY chromosomes. At least traditionally. And what you guys want to do is delineate the boundary that separates the male athletes from the women as if they don't need to be separated, as if this is not a safety issue, and as if there are no defining characteristics for the two sexes, for the two genders. Enough of the fairy tales.
Enough of the fantasy. Let's talk reality. Rocky Balboa, are you prepared to accept Tommy Gunn's challenge?
I fucking love that movie. So it turns out the IBA wasn't lying, and we were right to trust our eyes and our common sense. After all, big shock. Now that the IBA has been stripped of recognition by the IOC, and world boxing is standing in their place under their current provisions, Imane Khelif cannot compete. Women's category is specifically defined and comprised of athletes with XX chromosomes. Women, not men pretending to be women or men who can pass for women. Not that Imane Khelif can, because he can't. Didn't need to be an endocrinologist to look at him and see that's a man. A man. Some bit in there about Imane Khelif taking hormonal therapy to lower his testosterone levels, I guess, to even the playing field with the other athletes in the category when he shouldn't be in it at all. You've got XY chromosomes. That's established. That means you don't belong there. You never did. These separate categories are kept separate for a reason, for the protection of women's spaces. Allowing you to further participate would be an affront to the entire practice, the entire purpose of even having women's spaces. Buddy, you're lucky they're even letting you keep that gold medal, because if it were up to me and other guys like me, you'd be stripped of that recognition. You don't deserve it. What advantages a male athlete might have over a female athlete boil down to more than just their hormones. There's bone density, musculature. Whether the freaks and geeks on the left want to acknowledge it or not, men are physically stronger than women. Constitutes an uneven playing field and an unfair advantage to let someone with XY chromosomes compete against XX athletes. It is that simple. It always has been. You're the ones that are confused. You are free to live your life as whatever gender you see fit. Dress however you see fit. Do what you want. None of us is stopping you, but we're not obligated to play along in your fantasies either. This doesn't give us the right to treat you inhumanely, but that doesn't give you the right to occupy spaces that were never intended for you in the first place.
But you never say never. I mean, fill the stadium light out, but that's what we're looking to do, a stadium fight next. And I think with the support I got from the Sunderland fans in the North East in a whole, we could do that with Zayas. Zayas is, I mean, think about it. Bout hasn't got any belts, right? And Zayas has got 2 of the 4, yeah? 2 of the 4.
He's got WBA and WBA.
So why not just go straight in and try and add another 2 to mine? Yeah. And I will. I believe I will beat him. He was sparring with me ex. He fought with me ex-sparring partner at back. So.
What did you make of that fight? If you saw any of it, actually, it was obviously on the same night.
I just thought it just looked. Zayas won. It wasn't like a huge impressive win, but Abbas is tough in game, and that's what he does. He tries to come and game here, and I thought Zayas won, but I didn't think it was like an unbelievable performance. But that's the fight. If the Benn fight, obviously, it's disappointing nowadays. World champion like me is gonna call for a fight with a person who's got nothing to bring to the table. But the fact that he's got such a big name. Reasons that, you know what I mean? But if it's not him, Zayas is the one we want. We want to take Zayas to Sunderland, not Puerto Rico, not in the sun. You come to Sunderland, going to play, like I said before, on a rainy old pitch.
There it is. Josh Kelly and his team are looking to better deal Matchroom, better deal Boots. The only reason that Matchroom picked this guy up is to bring that IBF title closer to their golden goose, Jaron Ennis. Eddie said that Josh Kelly had already agreed to fight Jaron Ennis. He had already signed on to fight him if he won. I knew to be skeptical about that. You signed on for 2 fights, you signed on for Bakram, and you signed on for Boots. Listen, this isn't exactly a loss for Matchroom, because Josh Kelly is a Matchroom fighter, so whatever success he has is success they have. They benefit from. But it is the old switcheroo. It definitely is the okie doke. They're talking about Zayas. Zayas didn't win 2 alphabet titles to your 1 to let you dictate terms to him. I don't view these 2 fighters as being on an even playing field, an even keel. You've got a belt, he's got 2. You got a couple of fans at home. He does too. The fight even happening hinges on whose promoter is willing to put up more money for it. I feel like that's what it boils down to, and because Top Rank is still between broadcasters right now, this isn't gonna happen. At least not between Top Rank and Matchroom. They'll be at a stalemate. The only way I can see it happening is with a Saudi intervention, a Saudi injection of cash to satisfy what Josh wants for the fight and what Zender would want for the fight. It's the only way it goes down.
Fight!
Conor Benn fight seems more feasible and more organic because Conor Benn versus Josh Kelly in the UK moves the needle. You don't need a Saudi intervention for that one. You can do that one on your own. Conor's a Matchroom guy, so is Josh. Conor's coming off the biggest win of his career, so is Josh. To Josh Kelly. Conor Benn would present as a low-risk, high-reward situation. You don't often see those in the sport of boxing. Conor Benn is a very big name in the sport, but he doesn't have the amateur pedigree of a Josh Kelly. He would present as someone more beatable than a Boots Ennis, more beatable than a Xander Zayas, worth more than both. The Brit in me knows that beating Conor Benn could catapult Josh Kelly into the casual stratosphere, the casual consciousness, because even the casuals know Conor over there. Josh beats him, the casuals will know Josh. Could you do that fight in a stadium? You could. I don't think they're exaggerating about that. Does Josh Kelly win the fight? He might. Conor is a fun fighter to watch. He is. albeit a flawed fighter, doesn't have the amateur pedigree of a Josh Kelly, who was able to thwart the size and power and menace of Bakram Murtazaliev, who is noticeably bigger than Conor Benn. If you can work around Bakram, you can work around Benn. If you're Conor Benn, what worked against Chris Eubank Jr. in your last fight isn't going to work against Josh Kelly in your next fight. Showing the jab and setting up your punches, measuring the distance, that's not how you come at Josh Kelly. You're not better at that than him. Stuff you did in your last fight, second fight with Chris Eubank Jr., you have to come at Josh the way you came at Chris in the first one. The first one, the old saying goes, box the fighter and fight the boxer. In this situation, Josh would be the boxer. He wants to keep it a boxing match. You have to make it a fight. You explode on this guy. Cream pie him.
What?
He's got to rush him, make it rough and tumble, make it physical. Like he did in the first Chris Eubank Jr. fight. That's what will work against Josh Kelly, because you ain't going to out-finesse him. You're not going to outbox him. You've got to maul him. You do that, you stand a chance. It's a big fight in the UK. Josh Kelly seems to have officially given Boots the runaround. The old okey doke. What does Boots do now? Without a high-profile opponent, he's really not at liberty to fight another bum. What may be the light at the end of the tunnel, the saving grace, is that Rick Mirrigan, who manages Virgil Ortiz, took to his social media and said, never give up. This one saves the sport. Ortiz in 7. Along with a picture of Boots and Virgil's face-off several months ago, is this fight been salvaged? Behind the scenes, have they worked it out? So all that stuff about Virgil Ortiz suing Golden Boy Promotions has since gone quiet. Has Virgil Ortiz, Rick Mirrigan alongside him, reconciled with Golden Boy Promotions, and are they now working behind the scenes to deliver the Boots fight after all? Because as far as I was concerned, that fight was dead in the water. I didn't really think it was ever their intention to make that fight, so much as finding a way to separate from Golden Boy. Left to its own devices, the imagination can run wild. Has Turkey LL Sheik decided to get involved? Has he intervened? Will he now provide the purses necessary to get these two guys in the ring with each other? What's going on? Rick Mirrigan must like his fighters' his chances that he thinks he can do Boots Ennis in about 7 rounds. This isn't exactly Erickson Lubin that he would be fighting. I've long maintained that stylistically, I favor Boots Ennis to win the fight. Even though Virgil's fought the better opponents, he's got the better resume. But at his best, he's a pressure guy, an aggressive guy, and those are the kind of guys that Boots Ennis does best against. The ones who want to mow him down, stand in front of him, and let punches go. He does his best work around those kinds of fighters. Your Roman Villa, Imane Khelif, more recently, Uisma Lima. Stylistically, Boots has the edge. The only question is, physically, can he handle what punches get in? Because Boots ain't that fighter that walks through the water without getting wet. Even in fights that he dominates, he takes punches, he takes punishment. Can he take one from Virgil? Guy's chin might be as solid as paper mache, but we wouldn't know because his quality of competition has been so poor. So shit! Virgil would present as the biggest puncher that Boots Ennis would have fought. Boots Ennis for Virgil would present as the most talented fighter that he would have fought. If they make this fight, does this salvage the relationship between Golden Boy and DAZN, who are applying a lot of pressure on Golden Boy to deliver this fight? Is an announcement imminent? Behind the scenes, have they got it together enough to do this one? We'll find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
If you look at this fight, Keith really does have a chance. He's yes, he's experienced. Yes, he's older, but he's seasoned. He's smart. He can set traps. And listen, the punches always last in the go. And we saw in that last fight when he came back and he knocked out that Australian kid.
Rock Jarvis.
Yeah. He's still got it. Still got it. He can still pull the trigger. He can still land those big shots. The power is still there, obviously. And there's enough flaws in the porous defense of Fundora that you can be like, I could see how Keith sets a trap in this fight and pulls it off. And then you get even more ability to make big money. Because at this point, Thurman's only looking for big fights. Obviously, he's coming off a long layoff, going into the Fundora fight the first time, blows out his bicep, comes back. deals with Jarvis, and right back into this fight. I mean, it's only going to be big fights from here. It's going to try and maximize the amount of money they can make. I believe he just turned 37 in November. That's a tough time to be fighting top young dogs.
At this age, too.
This age.
I feel like Chris Algieri was being very thoughtful with his analysis. Not thoughtful to me and you, but thoughtful to Keith and what his real chances are. Because he mentions that Keith got a knockout in his last fight over a young fighter in Brock Jarvis, but he doesn't mention that Brock Jarvis used to campaign as low as 135, and he was a blown-up 135 at 154. Actually had no business there. On the premise that Keith knocked him out, you say that Keith Thurman still has it, but I'm not sure he does. Not based on a Brock Jarvis fight. Brock had already been knocked out at 140 pounds by Liam Barrow, that if Keith Thurman knocks him out again at 154, that doesn't really mean Keith still has it. That means Brock's got so much glass in his jaw he ought to be a chandelier. And what else? Keith Thurman is not fighting the Sebastian Fundora of old, who would normally give up his height and length to bang on the inside. These days, he's staying behind his jab. He's not holding his feet. He's moving them inch by inch, already being taller than the vast majority of fighters at the weight, including Keith. You say that Keith can set traps. What Keith Thurman normally does is circle away from the opponent and walk them into a shot. But Sebastian, being so much taller and so much longer than Keith, if you try to stay on the outside of him, he can still hit you, but you can't hit him. Because his arms are longer than yours. If you try to stay on the outside, if you try to crash the pocket and get on the inside, he has shown he can work there too. Not the best, but that is what he used to do. He's not a deer in the headlights in the pocket. He will let his hands go. Being so thoughtful in his analysis of the fight, Chris Algieri was probably just doing so for the sake of conversation. If Keith Thurman has an out to win this fight, what would it be? That he is the more experienced fighter of the two. He did used to be a unified champion after all, but then again, so was Sebastian Fundora for a short while. Are you sure that Keith is the more experienced fighter of the two? He may have been a professional boxer longer than Sebastian because he's older, but how experienced is he when he periodically takes 2 years off here, 2 years off there, year here, 1 year there, 2. If you really look at it, Keith's gotta have something like maybe 6 or 7 years total in the last 10 where he wasn't fighting. So I would not overstate his experience level against Sebastian. You may be older than him, but in terms of experience, do you really have that much over him? Maybe they don't want to make the fight seem like a whitewash, because that would in turn make it harder to sell, and it's already a tough sell. Sebastian's not a big draw, and Keith Thurman hasn't been relevant in years. Why should you have to pay $70, $75 to see these two guys? Why? Because Amazon isn't giving the PBC a budget? Because they lost the Showtime deal and the Fox deal before that? So now they're reduced to crowd-funded boxing, GoFundMe boxing? Go fuck yourself. I've got a pornography addiction that I need to support. I think that Keith took the fight out of desperation because at this point, he's got very limited options. The multi-million-dollar offers are not pouring in for Keith Thurman, who hasn't kept that active over the years and likely needs more money. So, this is what he has to resort to.